You ever get that feeling? Scrolling through your phone, bam, another ad, bam, another one. Like, come on, give me a break. It really makes you wonder, though, doesn't it? With all this crazy data they have on us, all the targeting and algorithms and whatnot, has marketing, kind of lost its soul?
Yeah, I get that.
Is it all just clicks and conversions now? No heart? We're diving into this article today. Is marketing losing its heart? How data is driving out emotion in advertising. Catchy title, right?
Yeah, it grabs you for sure.
So are we really trading genuine connection for just like cold, hard data? That's what we're going to try to figure out today.
Absolutely. I think it's a question that's on a lot of people's minds, whether you're in marketing yourself or just, bombarded by ads every day like the rest of us. This article really gets to the core of this tension between, on the one hand, all this incredible data we have now, and on the other, that age-old need for brands to connect with us on an emotional level.
Right.
To make us feel something. It's a delicate balance, and that's what we're exploring today. How can marketing find that sweet spot where data insights actually fuel rather than, squash real human connection?
Okay, so the article starts off by taking us back, way back, to when emotion was king in advertising. Like that iconic Coca-Cola ad, "I'd like to buy the world a Coke."
Yeah, classic.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
It wasn't really about the drink itself, was it?
Right.
More about this feeling of unity, optimism, everyone singing together on a hillside. It was powerful stuff. What do you think made those kinds of emotionally driven campaigns so memorable? Why did they stick with us?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. It was about tapping into those universal human desires. We all want to feel connected. We all want peace. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And back then, before marketers had all this detailed data on individuals, they had to appeal to these broader emotions, right? Because it resonated with pretty much everyone on a basic human level. And the article points out that this stuff really worked. There's research showing that emotional marketing can increase purchase intent by a significant margin, something like 20%. And it strengthens brand loyalty. Because when a brand makes you feel something good, you associate that good feeling with the brand itself. It gets kind of baked in,
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then, boom, the digital age hits us. Suddenly, marketers are drowning in data. They know everything about what we click on, what we buy, where we go online. And the article argues that this flood of information, while obviously super valuable in many ways, might actually be pushing emotional connection to the sidelines. It's almost become more about what are they clicking on than how do we make them feel?
Yeah, I see what you mean. And it's understandable in a way. When you have all this data at your fingertips, it's natural to get obsessed with efficiency, with measurable results. The article calls this the data-driven dilemma. You get so focused on optimizing for clicks and conversions that you end up creating these hyper-targeted ads that might work in a very narrow sense, but they're just so soulless,
Yeah, totally.
They don't tell a story. They don't evoke a feeling. They just shout, "Buy this." And in the process, we might be losing something really important, that human spark.
The article gives this example of choosing a color scheme for an ad based solely on which colors get the most clicks. You end up with something that might perform well in the short term, but it's totally bland, forgettable. You see this all the time online, right? Ads that are super targeted, maybe even a little creepy, but just leave you cold.
Oh, all the time. And it's the algorithm got me to click, but did it make me care about the brand? Not really. And the article makes this really important point. Data can tell us what people do, sure, but it doesn't always reveal why they do it or what truly resonates with them on a deeper level. In fact, the article cites research that suggests emotionally engaged customers can actually lead to a 23% increase in sales. That's huge.
That's wild. So emotion is still the big driver.
It seems so. Even with all the data in the world, we still make decisions based on how we feel.
Okay, so if we accept that both data and emotion are important, the article proposes this idea of emotional storytelling as a way to bridge the gap. It's not about choosing one over the other, but finding a way to combine them. How can data actually help us tell better stories, more emotionally resonant stories?
I think the key is to see data as a tool, not a dictator.
Right.
Data can help us understand what our audience cares about, their pain points, their aspirations, and that understanding can inform the kinds of stories we tell, the emotions we try to evoke.
Right.
The article uses Nike as an example. They obviously analyze tons of data about their target market, but their ads often focus on these really inspiring stories of athletes overcoming obstacles, achieving their dreams. And that resonates with people, whether you're a pro athlete or just trying to, get in shape.
Absolutely. And that brings us to authenticity, doesn't it? The article says that something like 70% of consumers prefer brands that seem genuine, that have values. You can't just manufacture authenticity with data, can you?
No, you can't. Authenticity comes from knowing who you are as a brand, what you stand for, and then communicating that consistently through your actions and your stories. Data can help you see if your message is resonating, but it can't create genuine emotion or trust. That comes from being real, from connecting with your audience on a human level, sharing experiences, being vulnerable.
So how do we actually put all this into practice? How can marketers bring data and emotion together in a concrete way? The article gives some practical tips, starting with this idea of humanizing your data. What does that even mean?
It means going beyond the numbers, beyond the spreadsheets. It means understanding the real people behind the data points.
Right.
So instead of just looking at click-through rates, you might do some qualitative research like surveys with open-ended questions, really listening to what people are saying on social media, maybe even doing some in-depth interviews. It's about understanding people's motivations, their struggles, their hopes. It's about adding that why to the what,
I like that. Adding the why to the what. The article also mentions utilizing narrative structures, things like the hero's journey. How can those classic storytelling frameworks make marketing more emotionally effective?
Well, those structures tap into these universal human experiences. The hero overcoming adversity, the underdog winning, the journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
By framing your brand's story or your customer's journey within those familiar frameworks, you create this deeper connection. It's more relatable, more memorable. It gives your message that emotional arc that just presenting facts and figures often lacks.
Another interesting tip is to create emotional triggers. This is about using visuals, messaging, things like that, to intentionally evoke certain feelings. The article gives the example of using warm colors to create a sense of comfort.
What are some other ways marketers can do this, trigger emotions?
It's really about understanding the psychology of emotion.
Okay.
For example, using nostalgic imagery or music can evoke feelings of comfort, longing for the past. Humor, if it's appropriate for the brand, can create positive associations.
Showing empathy and compassion in your messaging can build trust and rapport. It's about making deliberate choices about the elements you use in your campaign to elicit that specific response from your audience.
Got it. And then, of course, there's test, measure, and adjust. But it's not just about the usual metrics anymore, right? We need to think about measuring emotional engagement, too. How do we do that?
Exactly. Click-through rates and conversions are still important, but they only tell part of the story. To measure emotional engagement, you might look at things like sentiment analysis of social media comments. Are people reacting positively or negatively to your campaign? Are they sharing it because it resonated with them emotionally? Are they spending more time with content that has that emotional hook? These kinds of metrics give you a more complete picture of how your campaign is landing, how it's making people feel.
And finally, this seems to be a recurring theme. Stay authentic. The article reminds us that chasing ROI shouldn't come at the expense of our values. Why is authenticity so crucial for building those lasting emotional connections?
Because people can smell BS a mile away, especially now.
Yeah, pretty.
When a brand is inauthentic, when their actions don't match their words, or when they try to manipulate emotions without any real heart behind it, it backfires. It erodes trust.
Yeah.
Authenticity builds credibility because people feel like they know you, like they can trust you.
Okay, so looking ahead, the article asks this really interesting question about the future of marketing. As technology gets even more sophisticated, will we see this trend towards efficiency and data continue? Will we lose that emotional connection altogether? What do you think?
I think the need for human connection is pretty fundamental. It's not going away. So while data and technology will keep evolving, giving us even more powerful tools, I think the marketing that really succeeds, that really stands out, will be the marketing that understands those basic human emotions and speaks to them. It's about using data to empower us to tell better stories, not to replace storytelling altogether.
The article talks about the role of AI in all of this, and it warns against becoming too reliant on these automated campaigns that might be great for short-term gains, but lack that real emotional depth. It seems like the human element will always be essential, right?
Yeah, I think so. AI can be incredibly helpful, for analyzing data, personalizing messages, but it can't replicate empathy or creativity, a deep understanding of what makes us human.
For sure.
I think the most successful marketers in the future will be the ones who can combine human intuition with data insights, using technology to help us tell more compelling and emotionally resonant stories.
So if we had to sum it all up, what's the big takeaway here? It seems like it's not about choosing data over emotion, or vice versa, but about figuring out how to weave them together to
Absolutely.
create these multi-layered campaigns that really connect with people on a deeper level.
That's it. Data gives us valuable information about our audience, but it's the emotional narrative that grabs their attention, makes them care, and ultimately drives that deeper brand loyalty.
So in a world that's becoming increasingly dominated by data and algorithms, it's the brands that remember the power of the human story, the ones that use data to enhance, not erase, that emotional connection. Those are the brands that'll win.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about using data to understand the human experience more deeply and then using that understanding to craft more meaningful and impactful marketing.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right, folks, last thought for you today. Think about those ads that have really stuck with you over the years, the ones you still remember.
Yeah.
What emotions did they stir in you? How did those feelings influence your perception of the brand? And here's a question to chew on. How do you think the companies behind those memorable campaigns balance data with emotional storytelling to create something so unforgettable? It's a pretty fascinating intersection to consider, isn't it?
It really is.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.